Okay, guys, so it's being recorded from now on. Welcome, everyone. It's another amazing meeting for us. And my name is Arik. And I just want to tell you before we start that this meeting, those webinars are organized by the Weekly Fasting Group, which is a very big online group of individuals who practice abstaining from food for at least 24 hours every week. So that's the common denominator of the group. Other than that, it contains people of different lifestyles, different dietary choices. So we don't have any agenda, any particular agenda. It's not a vegan group or something like that. And it's not a meat-based group. So no agenda at all, other than just fasting for 24 hours every week, at least. And every week we invite interesting speakers in the fields of healing, spirituality, alternative lifestyles, philosophy, and other subjects, just to enlighten ourselves, to get some wisdom, to share some wisdom. And today and I also wanted to tell you that if those ideas appeal to you and you are watching this video later on, you will find my WhatsApp number below this video. My name is Arik. I'm the moderator of the group. You are welcome to send me a WhatsApp message with your name and with your request to join the group, and I will happily add you. And of course, it's free, no charge at all. So, and today we have with us Thad. So, welcome, Thad.
Thank you.
Yeah, we are going to cover a subject that I don't know much about, and I have always been interested in bringing someone who would enlighten us on that subject. And finally, today we have this opportunity. So the subject is iridology, and especially like how it works, what it is, and its connection to fasting, detox, our health in general. So I'm excited because I really, really want to learn more about that, and I'm sure most of the people are. But we will start, guys, with a short guided meditation just to get ourselves grounded and more, in tune with what is going to happen here. So, Thad, over to you.
Okay, everyone, try to get relaxed and comfortable. And I prefer to close my eyes so that I'm not thinking about what I'm observing, and just try to relax and during the process, because the true art of meditation is to surrender and to let go of any kind of desires, wants, needs, any kind of attachments. You're just trying to just be peacefully bliss in that moment, and you're allowing your higher self to come in and help you to have more clarity and direction and find your inner purpose, your inner guidance. So just focus on the breath, say inside your mind while you're sitting there silently, and say, breathe in. And then as you're breathing in, and then breathe out as you're breathing out. And that will help your mind from constantly thinking about this and that, and continuing to be addicted to the overthinking process. And this is one of the things that's very important about meditation, is it helps us to quiet the overthinking mind. So just keep relaxing, keep feeling all the tension releasing from your body, keep feeling just all the sensations in your body. Let your heart be filled with lots of gratitude and appreciation and thankfulness for the life that you have, all of the small things that we take for granted every day. And let that gratitude fill up your body with positive alkaline frequencies of energy, and let that help your heart to be filled with a white light that continues to grow with every breath. And that is your heart resonant field that will continue to grow as you feel into that energy. And that is very bathing to our body and to our environment around where we are sitting. And that also communicates with the amygdala of the brain, and it helps that emotional center to be more calm and to be more at peace. And just totally surrender into the moment, totally let go of all attachments, concerns, and desires, and just breathe. Just let out some sighs and just let it all release in that moment. and just feel the energy decompressing and feel the peaceful waves bathing your bodies, all of your bodies. Remember, my friends, you're more than just one physical body. You have multiple layers and dimensions of your existence, of who you are. So help all of those bodies to be in sync and in balance with each other. And just keep relaxing, keep breathing into it, keep reminding yourself that you are good enough. You are grateful for your life. You don't have feelings of abandonment, regret, unforgiveness. You have feelings of warmth and joy and love, and you're cultivating higher levels of frequency, and you're diminishing and dissolving all of the baggage that we carry, all of the responsibilities, all of the collective energy of our generational family heritage, as well as the world's collective energy, all of our energy that we carry as a gender, whether it be female or a male. We can let that go, and we can just exist in that moment as a spirit having a human experience. Just allow yourself to sit there and not have any desires and any attachments. Just allow yourself to sit there peacefully and happily in existence. Eric, you'll have to remind me how long, because I get so into it, I lose track of time,
That is absolutely fine. I think it's a good point to stop and actually delve into our subject. So guys, please come back. Feel your body.
Yes.
Yeah, open your eyes, see the surroundings, and we are starting. Okay, Thad. So before we delve into these super interesting subjects of iridology and other connected things, I'll ask you one question that I really, really like to ask because it fascinates me. So how did it happen in your life that you started sensing that there is something beyond how most people live, beyond of how most people live, some kind of healing modalities that you might live your life maybe in a different way? So when did you start feeling that, and how did it happen, and what caused it in your life?
Well, I guess the easiest way that I can answer that question is that it was just a really deep inner knowing that there was always something further with life that we could experience beyond just the surface level that most people live. I grew up here in the central part of the South, of Alabama, which is the general called South of the USA or United States. And we have a tendency to have a very unhealthy traditional diet. It's very rich with Southern foods, fried foods, and things like that. So I grew up always, living and eating those types of foods. And that's one reason why it contributed to my excessive weight that I gained and stuff. But also I was carrying around a lot of emotional baggage too, just from life in general. And so I always was so grateful and appreciative for the quality of health that I had. But I guess I was kind of paranoid or scared or fearful over the what ifs, like I didn't want to have a heart attack because my grandmother, she watched her dad die when he was in his 50s, from a massive heart attack. And so she always was concerned about me and my mom being overweight, and I would always scare us with saying, I don't want you to die of a heart attack, and so then when I started having lots of acid reflux, from eating the standard real fatty foods, it made me have heart palpitations and stuff. And so it made me, more paranoid, more fearful, because I didn't want to have heart surgery. I didn't want to have to take medication and all those things. I was always very thankful that I wasn't on any kind of medications, not for anything, allergies or anything, because, I watched all these people around me that had to be on those types of medications, so that's what led me to all of this, is just the awareness that I needed to take control of my own health beyond what was standard in our culture, and so that really got me started on it, but then when my mom bought the health food store that we have, then I really dove deeper into it, because I started finding out about herbs and natural things that could help us instead of pharmaceutical medications. And then I started like researching different things I could do to lose weight healthy, the healthy way, not the unhealthy way. And then that's what led me to juicing and trying the plant-based diet, and going plant-based. And that's what led me to farther and farther things. But then I realized when I tried it just as an experiment that the weight loss was not the most benefit. It was my state of mind, my clarity, my peace, my overwhelming feeling of joy and happiness that I didn't have when I was eating those less healthy foods, and so I just really noticed a big difference. And I could feel that my body was telling me, as well as God or source, telling me that this is the way you can feel if you eat this way and live this way versus the way that you've lived all your life so far. And so it was kind of like that moment when I had that inner clarity, that inner light bulb that forever changed me. But then it still took me 7 years just to be able to get away from the addictive foods and the animal products, because it was so mentally addictive, even more than just physically, so because I was using those foods as comfort, as a sedation, as an escape, as a drug, so that's short story of it.
Okay, very good. And so what was your path once you discovered those other healing modalities like juicing and other things? Like, where did you proceed next?
Oh, I went from doing the plant-based, and I went from eating lots of fruits. Then I went to doing juicing, and I found out about a guy called Dan McDonald, the Life Regenerator. And he's the one that told me about Dr. Morris, Robert Morris. And he's the one that helped me to learn about the art of detoxification. And then that led me farther and farther down the path. And then that's when I started, discovering about water fasting and all different types of fasting. And I started experimenting with that. I've done a lot of water fasting, but I haven't done as much dry fasting. I've been able to do certain amount, but not as much as, of course, like some of our other great pioneers in our field, in our group, like Ivana and other people, but I've had my experience with trying those things and learning about how they help our bodies to purify our temple, and a lot of it's for spiritual, mental, and emotional purification, even more than physical, because that's truly what we are trying to do. It's just we have to get beyond the addiction to the foods, because it's truly about the spiritual, mental, and emotional awareness and journey of it all. That's why I'm looking so forward to sharing this information today with you guys about iridology, because that helps us to learn so much of that inner information from the wisdom of our eyes and our body, because it's tied to all of our body. So it kind of helps us to know how to navigate the challenges of letting go of those comforting substances, Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah.
amazing. So how did you get to learning about iridology finally?
From Dr. Morris. When I took his level 1 class, I live in Central Alabama, and Dr. Morris is in Southern Florida. And so that's only probably, I think it was 11 hours drive for me. And so I went down there and took his live classes when he still had the live classes. And then that's when I first learned about iridology. But as I will explain to you guys today, as I give a little short intro about that today in my presentation, is that only sparked my interest, though, because he, in the level 1 class, he just gave us a basic introduction to it. But then that made me want to dive deeper into the subject. So I went home over the next couple years, as I saved my money so I could go back and take his level 2 class. I bought the other Dr. Jensen books on iridology. And then I really dove deep into that literature. And that's what really sparked my interest and my fascination for it, because I found it was very, very interesting how ironically accurate it was, because I started experimenting with how accurate it was. Like, I would tell people stuff about what I'd see in their eyes, and they'd say, "How do you know that, Thad? I didn't tell you nothing about myself." And I'm like, "Well, that's because your eyes told me." I gave an eye reading one time to a guy in my parents' health food store, just a standard person come in the store that wanted reading. And I said, "You got a strong weakness on your left kneecap." He said, "Thad, that's amazing. You know that. A couple of years ago, I had a chainsaw accident and I got a big scar on my left knee." And see that
Wow.
the iris the irises are connected to all the nerves of the body, so it records it, and that's the whole premise of iridology and how it started in the 1600s. Is a man, I can't pronounce his name, I think it was from Italy or somewhere, but he was taking care of an owl. He broke his leg on accident, and he noticed a little line showed up in the eye of the owl. And then he noticed as he helped the owl to recover from the broken leg, it looked like the line got, it looked like it healed, it got better. And then the owl came back to visit him, later in the future, and the line was gone, it was disappeared, and he started like correlating that that's possible what could, go on in our own eyes, in our own body. And so then that's what led to, more people diving into the subject too, and then Dr. Jensen came around in the 30s, and he started really making it where it was like the American iridology, and that's the kind of iridology that I practice, is the American kind that Dr. Morse and Dr. Jensen teach. I haven't dove into the German iridology yet, but Ivana has shared some of it with me, and I do find it very fascinating. Like the part that I do resonate with a lot is the right eye is associates with your dad, and your left eye associates with your mom, and that's something that is not taught in American iridology. That's taking it beyond, but I love the idea of deepening our learning, and our knowledge on these subjects, Yeah.
Absolutely. So did you finally take the second part, the second level of the course with Dr. Morse, or you kind of proceeded by on your own with the books?
No, I read the books over 4 years, but I wasn't able to make it back to the level 2 until 2018. So I had 4 years to really study the literature and to start practicing giving iridology readings. And then I went to Dr. Morse's level 2 class, where I learned about lymphatic iridology and how we can see the state of the lymphatic system in our eyes. And that's where it was kind of like it was the top, the icing on the cake, as they say. It kind of like rounded off the whole, information about iridology, because still to this day, 80% of what I've learned about iridology comes from Dr. Jensen and his books, because he has 2 or 3 different books, as I'll share on here. But the other 20% come from Dr. Morse's teachings,
Wow, fascinating. Okay, so I think it's the good point, good timing to start really delving into this subject. But could you please start right from the beginning? Because for me, for example, I have no idea, more or less, except for you just look in the eyes of someone and you read about their body. But other than that, I don't have much information about that. So if you could just start from the basics and explain what it is and how it works, that would be great.
Well, you're in for a treat, everyone, because I have taken great efforts and great time to make a wonderful PDF presentation that I'm going to share on my screen, that it really dives into it and helps you to really understand, like the basics, as well as the little bit more intermediate / advanced, so if I can share my screen,
I've just giving you the permission to share.
Okay.
So from now on, you can share. Absolutely.
All right.
Thank you so much for the effort that you took to prepare everything. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. Well, see, I was invited about a month ago to the World Energy Conference that a lady in England, she lived in England too, and this is her second year doing it. She invited me to come talk about iridology too, and I was so inspired by that presentation that I said, well, I can do better. I can make a presentation that's way more professional looking and way more higher quality, so that's when I said, well, I'm going to make it into like a whole PowerPoint presentation, and so that's what I've done, and that's
Sounds
what
good.
I'm
Sounds good.
sharing
Thank
with
you
you
so
now.
much. Yeah.
Can y'all see my screen good?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll get started, because this is a very detailed and informational presentation, and I look forward to sharing it with you all. Yes, it's titled, "What is Iridology and Why is it Useful for Fasting and Detoxification?" And this is the first of my story. I have 16.
What a change. What a change.
Yeah. Yeah. I have 16 years experience helping my family with our health food store in Central Alabama, where I learned all about herbs and natural products to help improve our health. It was in 2006 I was inspired to take my health to higher levels than was what was normal in the conservative South. It helped me to take control of my health and lose over 100 pounds. I achieved this from eating only plants, high amounts of fruits, herbs, and fasting. And then from that awareness, I decided to become a level 1 and 2 certified iridology and detoxification specialist trained by Dr. Robert Morris. And that was when I was at the iridology course with him in 2018. And of course, like it says over here, you can read more about my story on my website, you know. And then going on to slide number 2, my love for iridology began in 2014 at the level 1 class with Dr. Morris. He shared with us some great basic information about iridology at the level 1 class. After the class, that left me wanting to learn more. So over the next couple of years, I purchased these books on the right to deepen my knowledge on the subject. The Iridology Simplified book, that's this one right here, is a great small book for beginners, you know. And the Science and Practice of Iridology, this book right over here, this was his first detailed book that he published in the 50s. And then the book he came out with in the 80s, that was a really big investment for Dr. Jensen because it has lots of high resolution photographs. And in the 80s, that was when the camera technology was getting to that stage where it could take really high resolution shots. And so it cost him quite a bit of money to produce that book because it's a pretty thick book too. It's like a college textbook. I mean, it's a good 2.5 inch thick book. You know, it's very, very detailed. I mean, I've had to read it multiple times because it's so detailed, you know. And yeah, then book 2, this is the book I learned 80% of all my iridology knowledge. I studied these for a couple years before I took Dr. Morse's level 2 class on lymphatic iridology. These books were a great foundation before taking his class or his course at the level 2 in October 2018. And in volume 2, yeah, it's like a textbook, very detailed and filled with many high resolution photos of the iris. Okay, and then moving on. And this is a great slide to show you what Dr. Jensen said, his quote that I share with people all the time, because they're always asking me about these tests that we get that are average tests in our medical association, you know, like blood tests and all these tests. And see, before I read the quote, and, you know, of course, you can read it too, but I was going to say, before I read the quote, I want you to understand that all of these tests, the urinalysis, blood test, SMA test, fecal test, blood test, all of those, they are just fluctuations of the body. You know, they're just testing what's going on in that moment. You know, to get true readings of blood pressure, you have to first you have to test both arms, because you'll understand why in just a minute when I explain even the way we understand it in iridology with the eyes. You know, you'll understand just in just a minute. But you have to test both arms because you can have different readings, you know, because the body is kind of what they say bivertical or biparallel. You know, there's one half of the body split in half over here that can be stronger or weaker genetically. And then the other side of the body is the other way. And so you very much can see different readings, and you have to take to get true accurate blood pressure readings, you have to take 5 tests over 7 or 8 days and then look at your averages. It's the same thing truly with blood tests too. You may not have to take as many tests, but you can't just take one blood test and get accurate readings, because it could change in next week or two that you go back and get another test, you know, because it's fluctuations. But the iris fibers of the eyes, they don't fluctuate that often. You know, they only fluctuate maybe every 6 months or over a year. And that's if you are doing something that's either improving your genetic strength or it's hurting your genetic strength, you know. And so, you know, that's why we can get a much more accurate reading. That's why Dr. Jensen said this quote, you know, there are many ways of trying to determine bodily conditions such as hair analysis, the SMA test, urinalysis, fecal analysis, blood analysis, etc. But we do not find one that gives a more complete picture of the whole situation than the science of iridology. You know, and that's so true on so many levels, you know, and I've seen that play out so many times, you know. Okay, now this is getting into what truly is iridology, you know. All right, let me I'm trying to move my window that shows all of our our photos of us. What is iridology? It's a method whereby the doctor or health practitioner can tell from the markings or signs in the iris, the reflex condition of the various organs and systems of the body. These markings represent a detailed picture of the integrity of the body, its constitutional strength or weaknesses, areas of congestion or toxic accumulation, and inherited strengths and weaknesses. Through the application of iridology, it is possible to absorb normal and abnormal reflex signs. The iris is connected to every organ and tissue of the body by way of the brain and nervous system. The nerve fibers receive their impulses by way of their connections to the optic nerve, optic thalami, and spinal cord. Nerve fibers in the iris respond to changes in the body tissues by manifesting a reflex physiology that corresponds to specific tissue changes and locations. This is what Dr. Jensen called the neural arch reflex. The iris reveals an individual's strengths and weaknesses and what has been done to the body through incorrect living habits. And that's one of the important things for us to remember, because we can see the accumulation of waste, we can see the accumulation of stress, we can see the accumulation of hardship, we can see the accumulation of over worry and just all these things in the iris because of it being connected to the nervous system. So it's much more than just what we see just from physical elements. We see how the spiritual, mental, and emotional affects the physical elements of the body. So it's very interesting how everything is recorded because of how it being connected to the iris fibers. But now this is what I was talking about before. See, to understand how to properly read each eye in iridology, we have to understand that the body is divided vertically. The right half of the body is covered in the right eye and vice versa with the left eye. It is actually pretty common for me to see one eye with a weaker constitution or a heavier buildup of lymphatic congestion or toxic accumulation. And that's when people will start to tell me, they'll say, well, no wonder that I've always felt a weaker feelings and weakness, more weaker symptoms in my right leg versus my left leg. And I'm like, well, that's why, your eyes are showing that. And a lot of times it's from an inherited weakness, or a strong weakness that developed, from when you were young, and then you're experiencing those symptoms, when you become older, so that's why I see it all the time with people, and that's why it really does matter, because that's why sometimes people say, well, Thad, do I need to take pictures of both my eyes, or do you just need one eye? And I'm like, no, I need both, because one eye covers one half of the body and the other covers the other half, And it says this is very important when testing our blood pressure. We have to test both arms, not just one arm like the Medical Association does. Okay, and now this is getting into understanding the iris colors and what they mean. In the science of iridology, we find that there are two basic colors of the iris, blue and brown. Now that's, of course, under the understanding of American iridology. The German iridology, they think of it a little bit different, of course. Many iridologists feel that because marriages between different races, we are finding that they call them mixed. I have never seen this. I've never seen where this divides the fiber colors. One has either brown or blue eyes. All other colors show levels of acidosis or lymphatic stagnation. Many drug deposits, metals, and various chemicals can change the iris color. Chronic weaknesses and congestion can change a blue eye to brown in those related areas, or totally change your iris to brown. In a brown iris, these areas appear black or dark brown. That's from Dr. Morris. And see, that's how he explains here. Blue eyes, blue is normal. White, when you see white in a blue eye, that's acute lymphatic stagnation or inflammation, and that's where a person will start to have lots of, they'll start to have edema, pain, swelling, they'll have inflammation, they'll have all those symptoms that are indicating that they're in an acute stage of inflammation. but that's the stage that is of the stage of healing. That's the stage when our bodies have gotten so weak and they're in the hypo stage. We have to get them back to the acute stage to help the body to heal. Okay, well, that's what's confusing to people, because the more you go to the hypo stage and you're out of the acute stage, your body loses its sensitivity. It loses its ability to feel pain and sensations. So then they start to get the wrong idea that hey, I don't have the problem anymore because I don't have pain anymore, when no, actually it's getting worse. You're just losing the sensitivity to be able to feel that your body's asking you to do something about it, because you missed out on all that time that your body was giving you those symptoms when you were in the acute stage. It's just we normalize in our society that a lot of the acute symptoms that we have are just normal. When that's no, a headache is not normal. That's a sign from your body that you have something going on. It's not a sign that you need more aspirin or more medication. It's a sign that you have a imbalance, or you're not getting enough hydration, a lot of times. And remember, true hydration comes from, our hydrating fresh fruits and vegetables, because that's H3O. It's not H2O. H2O is the water we get that's outside of fruits and vegetables, and that water has to be converted in the body over to H3O. And but we still need to consume from time to time a good water, when we're not dry fasting, of course, that is for a diluter to the body's lymphatic congestion. See, you don't want to take someone that's very lymphatically congested and get them to doing too much dry fasting or intermittent fasting in that stage, because it's going to make their body too dry. See, they need the water at first to help dilute down some of that acid waste, that congestion. At the same time, they need to start incorporating more living, hydrating water that's structured by nature. We can structure our water outside of what we find from our fruits and vegetables by putting it in the sun, by by charging it in other ways, and just different things we can do to it. But the best way that it's structured water is from the fresh fruits and vegetables. But yeah, and then it goes from the white level in the blue eye, goes to yellow or gray, and that's subacute. And then it goes to green and brown. That's subacute slash chronic, because a green eye can still be in the borderline of subacute, but a green eye can also sometime be an accumulation of other chemical stagnation mixed with yellow lymphatic congestion, and it can make it appear green, because when you mix a little bit of different colors together, you come up with different colors. And then in a brown eye, light brown is normal, and then lymphatic stagnation turns light brown, eyes darker brown with each stage, dark brown being chronic. And you can see when lymphatic stagnation builds up in the iris, it builds up like a cloudy haze over the top part of the iris. And then as you start to break up that lymphatic stagnation in the body, that haze starts to dissolve. And then you can actually see deeper into the iris, and you can actually see more of your true genetic, deeper weaknesses that you always had. You just couldn't see them because you had such a haze over your iris with lymphatic congestion and toxicity. And that was my own personal experience too with my own eyes. My eyes used to be really dark brown, and then I started doing so much detoxing and cleansing and losing weight that I started getting my eyes so much clearer and so much lighter brown, that I realized that more than likely I have blue eyes too, because both of my grandparents on my mom's side had blue eyes. Now my mom and dad, they have brown eyes, but I think they have true blue eyes too. Their just eyes have turned brown, just like mine did, from stagnation of pollution. And then it goes on, it says, another way we can know a true iris color is looking at the color eyes of our family. That's what I was just saying. What color did your parents and grandparents have? If your parents or grandparents had blue eyes, it's very possible you have blue eyes, even if you were born with brown eyes. And then see, most people that have European descent or mostly Caucasian have true blue eyes. Your Asian, Spanish, Mexican, Native American, Middle Eastern races, a lot of times those are true brown eyes, and here in this chart, this is where you'll actually get to see what I'm talking about. And see this starting on the top left, this is a true blue eye. It has a little bit of white in there, but it's mostly around the bow wall. That's what that ring is. If you can see my cursor in the top left picture, that's what that white ring is around there. That's the bow wall, or the autonomic nerve wreath, as I'll go into later. And then it turns more white. See that white? That's that white I was telling you about earlier. This is a person that will experience, lots of those symptoms I was talking about, like edema and swelling and bloating and just all kind of stuff, especially when they start doing body work, when they start doing a lot of like lymphatic massages, doing like saunas, doing rebound. If they're doing a lot of that body work and they don't have their other channels of elimination open, so all that lymphatic waste can start coming out, which means you don't have your bowels open and draining properly, you don't have your lymphatic system draining properly, you don't have your skin perspiring properly, you don't have your lungs coughing up mucus and waste, you don't have your kidneys filtering out the lymphatic waste. If you don't have those channels of elimination open, then your skin's going to try to take over for some of that, and it's going to, you'll see those symptoms in your skin, a lot of times, and in the tissues of the body, because you're stirring up all that waste. And then this is another example of a blue eye that it has a heavy accumulation of lymphatic waste in the acute stage around the bow wall, and they have what's called an overacid stomach ring. That's why it's real white around the pupil there. And then this is a blue eye, of course, that has a lot of yellow / maybe small amounts of orange, and a lot of times what appears to be orange in a blue eye is most of the time sulfur accumulation, from toxicity. And of course, I'm getting a little ahead of myself in some situations, but that's what I'm going to be talking about in the next slide. And then this is a green eye that shows that what I was talking about earlier. And then this is a blue eye that's turned more brown, especially around the bow wall and around that stomach area right in the middle there. And then they have a real strong skin ring. See, that shows they have chronic skin issues, because that's called a skin ring, or a rough ring. Of course, I'll go into that later too. And then over here on the right side, these are true brown eyes. Now it's possible that these top two eye photographs, especially this one on the top right, could be a true blue eye, but you don't see any blue in the nerve fibers. I mean the stress rings. That's what those are called. Those are called stress rings, or furrows, like cramp rings. Of course, I'll explain that later too. But you don't see any blue coming through. If you've seen blue coming through that area, then they're a true blue eye. Anytime you see blue in a brown eye, it's not a brown eye, it's a blue eye. You should never see blue in a brown eye, a true brown eye. And then this is, of course, as you can tell, that there's no blue in this one or this one or this one. Now this bottom right one, this is from a man from the Middle East. That's definitely 100% a brown eye. And I think this was from a brown or a melanated person as well, this photograph. I can't remember. Someone sent that photograph to me one time, and I don't remember what color skin they had. But now this is what I was talking about before, how we can see toxic accumulation in the iris. And this is where in blue eye, I don't have some good photographs to really share with you of a brown eye, because we can't see toxic accumulation as easy in a brown eye as we can in a blue eye, because the blue color allows us to see it so much easier. But these are all good signs of what we call drug spots, or psoras, or hyperpigmentation spots. They're called different names, and they can be made up from different types of drugs. Like it says, areas of tissue weakness due to toxic settlement and accumulants from drugs, body waste, etc. And they can also be inherited. The orange you see can be from a buildup of sulfur. See, like this eye right here, this blue eye. See, it has a lot of white lymphatic stagnation, some yellow lymphatic stagnation, but then all this orange you see around the bowels and stomach, and they also have a chronic malabsorption ring too around the pupil. That's from probably antibiotics or other sulfur medications, steroids, and it also could be certain supplements like conglosamine, chondroitin, MSM, things that are types of sulfur, that can build up in the body. And that's when we see it. Same thing up here in this eye too, around the colon and the bowels. But this eye has gotten so much darker than this eye, that could be a combination of lymphatic waste that's just turned more brown too, And then this eye on the top right, that is what we call a murky eye. That's where you really can't tell what the true color of the iris anymore is, because it's been so distorted by all the different colors. I mean, you can clearly tell it's still a blue eye, but it just looks real murky. It's a mixture of all different types of colors. It's blue, it's white, it's orange, it's yellow, it's brown in places. It's got several drug spots. It's a very genetically weak individual because their fibers are real spread out. Their autonomic nerve wreath is real spread out. You know, it's a lot going on in that eye. And then this eye down on the bottom right, that has a lot going on too, because you can see all that around the stomach and bowels again. And that's also the area where I'm going to be going on into in the further slides, that explains why we feel so much of the symptomology as far as our nerves and all of that, because a lot of the accumulation of waste, the highest amount of the accumulation of waste is always found around the stomach and bowel area. And that's also the area where we see the autonomic nerve wreath or the nervous system in the iris. And that's why it's very ironic that the most congested area of the eye is the same area that's connected to our nervous system. And that's what you're going to see later as I go into it, you know, because I'll explain to you why that is, you know. Now, this is talking about our cellular constitution or our genetic strengths and weaknesses. And this is very important to remember, because you can empower yourself and you can help yourself to feel, happy or content with where you're at, regardless of what you've been dealt in life, because it doesn't really matter what we've been dealt with. That's just our experience that we were supposed to have, you know. So don't feel bad. I have some people there, they have anxiety about getting their report back from me because they're like, that I'm worried about what it's going to say. And I'm like, don't have any worry or fear over what it's going to say. Let it empower you. Let it give you the information that iridology is designed to do, to empower you, so you know more about what's going on in your body, and then you can know better what to do about that situation. You know, there's just a lot of times people they refuse information sometimes out of fear, when we really just have to say, hey, if that's the cards I was dealt in life, there must be a reason for it, you know, because there's always a divine purpose and reason for everything that happens in our lives, you know. But as this says, your constitutional strength and how well you hold up under stress. The 5 levels of constitutional strength are represented in the iris. Iris fiber density can be compared to wood or cloth. The finest and most closely knit resembled oak and silk, while the coarser open weaves are more like pine or burlap. Your cellular constitution is shown in the iris of the eye and reflects your body's overall strength or weakness genetically. Your parents mostly determine your body's genetic weaknesses. The weaker the constitution, the more problems one will experience in life with their body. Your body regenerative process is slower, and one can have many healing crises. A strong constitution, on the other hand, shows endurance or cellular strength and longevity. A strong genes individual can conquer almost anything. Rebuild your genetic weaknesses through regenerative detoxification. Your lymphatic system is always compromised in the genetically weak area, which is what breaks down the cells in the first place. And see, what I wanted to also add to this part right here before we go on to the next slide is, remember the study of epigenetics, my friends. Don't ever feel like you are a victim to your genetics, because genetics change according to the way we live, according to epigenetics. Dr. Bruce Lipton explained that your genetics change according to the way you live, the way you eat, the way you drink, the environment you live, the people you hang out with, the thoughts you think, and most certainly your thoughts that you think, because you can have more gratitude and that will strengthen your DNA strand. It strengthens the very end of the DNA strand called the telomeres. And it's been proven that having more gratitude and gratefulness and appreciation, and because that's also a higher vibrational frequency of energy, you know, and so the more higher vibrational frequencies of energy, that is alkaline to our bodies. You know, a lot of times we think of the fruits and vegetables and the physical objects as alkaline or acid, but we don't think sometimes that our mind and our mental faculties, you know, our thoughts and what we focus on and all and the words we speak, we don't realize they can either be acid or alkaline too to the body, and they can build up toxicity and waste in the body as well. And so that's what I'm explaining here today, is that when we learn about ourselves in a very deep manner, we raise our level of awareness. We deepen our conscious awareness. then we can change the subconscious or the higher conscious self, and we can do it with the conscious mind, but we have to practice it, because once you get over the age of 25, it becomes very challenging unless you have some strong motivating factor or strong discipline or determination, because we get so stuck in our habits and our patterns that we've developed up to the age of 25, because, it gets ingrained kind of in us because of habit, and the only way we can change that is by creating new habits that do what we always talk about, which is called you reap what you sow, or cause and effect. What you give out is what you get back. That's a universal law. There's nothing that can ever dispute that. We always get back what we give out. And a lot of times when it comes back, it's more stronger than we give it out. That's why you always want to treat others with love and kindness. But at first, it starts with yourself, because you're giving out your energy. Same thing with our voice. As they say, you create your reality with your voice a lot of times, and your thoughts, because they're energy too, so that's why we have to be very aware of it, so don't ever feel like a victim of your genetics. Just remember that you can improve them, you can strengthen them over time. You just have to believe that you can. All right, this is a good
now Thad, I'm sorry to interrupt, but you have given us lots of information so far. You remember I told you, like, the best, like, after each 20-25 minutes, it's good to open the microphones. Maybe people have some questions, or some people, some things that are not clear to them so far. So let's just, maybe you can just stop the screen share, and then you will share screen again, starting from this one.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, and we will just open our microphones, guys. So in connection to what has just been said, guys, do you have any questions? You are welcome to unmute yourself and just ask, because we got lots of information.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if not, then we will just continue. So guys, don't be shy. Just ask your questions. Everything needs to be clear.
Hi, Thad. Good morning, good afternoon.
Hey, Ravi. Namaste.
Namaste. The question is, the iris is the area around the pupil. Is it correct?
Say again?
The iris, is it the area around the pupil?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So, is it possible for us to examine our own irises, or we have to go to a consultant like yourself to examine our own iris?
Well, you can, of course, learn how to analyze your own iris. You just have to learn about how to do that. That's what I'm kind of giving the basis of today. And I'm showing examples of like how we can start to understand what the markings in our iris mean. But you really want to dive deeper into the information, because it is quite thorough, and it can be so different in different situations. And we have to remember, iridology is all about interpreting the information. So everyone interprets it a little bit different according to their learned information, so that's why it's a great diagnostic tool, but it's all a basis on interpretation. It's using that inner wisdom and in intuitiveness and guidance, that when you look at something, you say, oh, I've seen that before, from experience. It takes some experience looking at different eyes. It takes some experience looking at the different features in the eyes, and you can start to see the patterns. You can start to understand, because, and it's just like anything else in life, you have to get some experience with it before you can truly understand what it's saying,
So also the area is a little broader, right? See, the color is something wrong with the body. Let's say body is toxicated or something. The color will change all over the iris, or the color will change little by little over a period of time, and then it becomes from brown, light brown to deep brown. How does it the transition happen? So
Well, what you'll see when the iris colors change, of course, like I mentioned before, it is harder to get our eyes to really change and notice it very much when we have darker color eyes, like, dark color brown eyes. But what you will see, and that's what I'm going to go into on here, and that's also what I posted with the iris colors, is that you'll see the iris color lighten up. You'll even be able to notice it when you look at your own eyes in the mirror. You'll be able to say, oh, my eyes are getting lighter. That's the easiest prettiest thing you're going to see. Like a true blue eye that's turned a different color, it's going to go back to being more blue as the body gets cleaner. Okay, that's what you'll notice in a blue eye. In a brown eye, if it's really dark when they start, as they keep cleansing the body, it's going to get lighter brown. That's what you'll be able to tell.
One question on the detoxification. I saw your reply in the WhatsApp group Eric has. You said somebody asked about their constipation, right? You said adding fruits to start with and then transition to juices. And then you were talking about introducing some herbs in the process, right? But I heard that some herbs also can be toxic to the body, correct or no?
Well, there is properties of different herbs that can be toxic in certain levels and certain sources of that herb. Like certain parts of the herb can be more toxic than other parts of the herb, and also it depends on the amount of that herb that you use too. And so herbology is, again, it's something that you have to really be experienced enough with to know how to use it safely with the body. And so sometimes when people don't know enough about herbs, they can have a tendency to follow more along the lines of natural hygiene, where they don't really believe in using herbs because they say they're so, they can have toxic elements. But I think herbal medicine, the herbs on our planet, they are seed-bearing fruits, or seed-bearing plants, I meant to say. And seed-bearing plants, according to, the deepest spiritual teachings, are medicine for man, And so I think that's one of a great tools that we can use. Now, if you are concerned about some of the herbs being more toxic, then avoid those herbs and take the more of the ones that are very beneficial to us that don't have toxic elements. Don't throw out the baby with the bathwater just because, there's one herb that you don't like necessarily. My point is that I truly think we need to get away from all thinking of, pharmaceutical medication and man-made medicines. And when we need something that goes beyond just our fresh fruits and vegetables for medicinal use, we can go to the other plants. Because last thing I'll mention about that is that herbs are a lot of times so much more powerful to the body because they're wild. They haven't been cultivated by man. They've been grown in the best soil. They have so much strength to be able to take care of themselves. So they're much more, and a lot of times they have much more higher levels of nutrients. Like a lot of the vitamins, minerals, and nutrients that we need when we're malnourished, we go to the herbs, like moringa. Moringa is a superfood. It's a green food that's amazing. I mean, they use it in Africa to bring people back from having malabsorption, or malnourishment. The mothers, breastfeeding mothers and pregnant mothers, and also malnourished children. And so because moringa is so concentrated in the amount of vitamins, minerals, and nutrients compared to most of your fresh fruits and vegetables. So again, we would have to eat a way larger amount of the fresh fruits and vegetables to even equal just a small amount of the moringa nutrition that we can get. So that's why, and then also there's certain herbs that give you certain vitamins and minerals that you can't get that much of from plants. There's a Chinese herb called Ho Shu Wu or Foti, that it helps repair cellular DNA damage because it has very high levels of zinc in it. And the Chinese have a tradition of saying that it will help your hair to go from gray to back to its original color because it repairs so much of the cellular damage to the body. So that's why I'm just giving these examples to show that herbs can be wonderful tools. We just have to use them in the right way.
Right. All right. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Ravi. Okay, guys, do you have any more questions before we continue? Okay, Thad, so you can go on. You can share your screen again and continue. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I hope this is coming through, well received, and I hope it's really informative because, I've tried to lay it out in an explanation way that is easier for people to follow, and I'm trying to lay it out in a way where it's like taking you on a journey, because the deeper I get into the presentation, the more it helps to see the connection with the spiritual, mental, and emotional aspects as well as the physical,
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. Yeah. Great presentation.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mhm.
This is a photo that I have that shows a very good explanation of how we can see the stronger genetics versus the weaker ones. And that's indicated with the iris fibers. And see, this is only, you can really only see this with professional quality photography because the iris is so small, a macro, that a lot of times we can get to a certain degree, good shots with our phones to a certain degree, but to truly see the depths of the iris, you need macro photography, and that's what both of these photo shots are. And this person over here on the left, this blue eye, which both of them are blue eyes, but this blue eye here over the left, they wouldn't be able to really get that good of a quality shot with a camera on their phone because the resolution isn't high enough, because their iris fibers are so close. Because this individual, this person, she lived close enough to me that she kept trying and trying with her cell phone, and she could never really get the photograph to pick up enough resolution. That's because she didn't have that very many big signs of weakness. So when I came through there on my way to going to Dr. Morse's class, I stopped by with my professional iridology camera and I took her photographs for her. And this was the result. But see, again, like it said above in the last slide, the closer the iris fibers, the stronger the genetics or the stronger the constitution. But that doesn't mean that this individual still doesn't have things they have to work on. See, I can go up here and let me get this black bar to go away. And I can zoom in and I can show you, see this black ring around the pupil? That is called a malabsorption ring. And that means that this individual is still malabsorbed. And then see this little wavy line around this inner part? That is called the autonomic nerve wreath, or it's called the bow wall. And that it's wavy and it has some spikes and valleys. And that indicates that her nervous system is a little irritated. And that's why it's called spastic. Also, her bowels are a little irritated and it's called spastic. And then you see how there's thicker congestion of white in certain areas. This is her face area, and that's a thicker congestion in her face and her head area. And then this down here, this is like, her leg and her adrenals and all of these areas. I can't remember which eye this was, so I can't tell you exactly where the locations are, but I'm just explaining that these heavier pockets of white, that shows the inflammation in those areas. And that's what Dr. Morse was talking about before in one of the other slides. These are heavier congested lymphatic areas of the body. So see, even though that individual has strong genetics, she still has things that she needs to work on to improve her health. Now, this individual over here on the right, they have a lot of work to do, and that's their big challenge in this lifetime because they have lots going on. I mean, that would take 100% full reading to just really explain everything that I see in there. That's a lot of stuff going on, and the deeper the hole, the more the fibers are spread out, the more chronic the weakness is, Okay, now I'm going to get to the part of the presentation that really explains very deeply. Let me back up the Zoom. There it goes. Okay. It really explains why we can feel our nervous system so much and why we are so challenged with our emotions when we start to detox. Why I hear from so many people that say, Dad, I've only been able to do so much fasting. I've only been able to do so much fruit and vegetable eating because every time I give up all my other heavier foods, I feel so sensitive. I feel everyone's emotions. I feel real irritable. I just can't control my emotions. And I'm like, well, that's because all of it's coming to the surface because you're taking away all of those suppressors, that's suppressing that nervous system, weaknesses. And so that's why they say the fruits and the herbs and the fasting and the detoxing, it reveals the inner work that you need to work on. So by having more awareness on what you need to do to support the body in certain areas, that helps you to be more calm with the process. And that's what iridology does. It allows us to look deeper into the windows of our bodies and our soul, because that's what the eyes are. I didn't mention it before, and I meant to make a slide about it, but I forgot about it, is that they say the pupil, you can think of the pupil as the true you, the soul, and the iris is the body or the physical part of who you are, because the soul cannot be defined. It cannot be, it doesn't have a gender. That's why we can't read the pupil. There's nothing to read in the pupil. It's just you. It's the true you of who you are. Well, the iris around that is your body. That is your physical vehicle. That is your spacesuit. So that's why we can read and we can understand what makes up that information of our bodies. So that's how we can think of the eye as well, is that the pupil is your true you, and the iris is your vehicle or your soul, I mean, or your body, your physical body. Okay, this slide is a very important one because it goes into what Dr. Jensen called his greatest discovery in this book right here, the Dr. Jensen's Guide to Better Bowel Care. This was a really wonderful book. It was in the chapter 4 called the neural arch reflex. And he said, what is the neural arch or bowel reflex? How is it connected with our nervous system? To learn more about the bowel reflex, which I named the neural arch reflex, I began to study embryology. I learned that by the second week of formation, the embryo takes the shape of the primitive gut tube and its nervous system begins to form. This means that the bowel tissue and the nerve tissue are very intimately related. By the 4th week, buds such as the lung bud and liver bud begin to bulge out from the gut and nerve tissue. By the 6th week, most of the organ buds begin to form. These organ buds, I suddenly noticed, are covered with the membrane made up of the same tissue that formed the bowel and nerve tissue in the earlier embryo. That was when I realized that the tissue of the primitive gut surrounds each organ with a membrane. All of a sudden it came to me. This is how the genetic weaknesses of the mother and father are passed down to the children through the gut and nerve tissue that becomes the membrane covering the organs. Where the bowel has an inherent weakness, the organ that developed from that area of the bowel also has an inherent weakness. This is the true key to the neural arch syndrome. I can now see how certain areas of the bowel were reflexively related to specific organs. Any genetic weakness in the bowel could affect the performance of the organ associated with that part of the bowel. Toxicity or nutrient depletion in one would affect the other. This makes that part of the bowel and that organ more subject to breakdown and consecutively dis-ease. Dr. Jensen. And then moving on so we can preserve the time that we have left. This is that chart that he was just talking about, right here. This is the chart that when he was studying embryology. And then see that black area, that's the primitive gut tube. And see, that's the liver bud budding out, the heart bud, there's the leg bud. And then that's what he was explaining about how when it buds out, that's what we can see the connection. And then this slide over here on the right, that's showing how the large intestines, how we can see these different weaknesses in these different areas, and I use this chart all the time to explain my clients how the large intestines is connected neurologically to all other organs of the body, even our glands. And the 4 major areas of the large intestines that we commonly see in people's eyes are the hepatic flexure, splenic flexure, heart zone, and the sigmoid flexure of the sigmoid colon. Okay. And then this is that diagram of the colon, the large intestines, that explains that. This is the right hepatic flexure. This is where we can have lots of buildup, and this can be lots of congestion in that area. And then this is the transverse colon. That's the part of the colon that is directly correlated with our head. A lot of times when we have head congestion and head problems, it all comes from this part of the colon. Large intestines is very congested. And then we can have more congestion in the left splenic flexure. And then we get down to the descending colon, and right about there where the descending colon is written is where the heart zone is. And then it goes down to the sigmoid colon. And then this is the area down here where we can, have some issues with weaknesses that can create hormonal weaknesses. It can create, or it can contribute to, can also contribute to worry and anxiety and stress because it can weaken the spleen, and that's what I'm going to go into next. Now, this is the actually iridology chart, and this is important to cover just for a second lightly to show you what I mean. See, this is the pupil. This is the stomach around the pupil. Then it goes on your right side. It starts with the cecum, and then it goes ascending colon, and then there's that flexure, that hepatic flexure. And then see this white ring around it, that's the autonomic nervous system or the bowel wall. And then this is the small intestines, of course, on the inside of the iris. And then that can affect, when that is dirty, that can affect the parathyroid and the thyroid and the bronchus. And then you can have some back weaknesses and stuff. And then the neural arch is all found, the neural arch weaknesses are all found in around this ring of this bow wall or autonomic nervous system. And that's why the gallbladder is neural arch a lot of times, the pancreas, the adrenals, the urinary tract or the prostate of the man, the bladder, the parathyroid and the thyroid and the master glands, the pituitary and the hypothalamus and the pineal, all of those areas. And then over here in the left eye, you have the heart zone, in that descending colon, and it's laying right on that nervous system barrier or border. And that's very interesting. And then you have this, the descending colon goes to the sigmoid, and then see there's that big sigmoid bend, that sigmoid flexure in the chart, and that can affect the spleen and the ovaries and the testes of the man. And then you comes over here and it drains between the adrenals and the prostate and the urinary tract and the vagina and the penis. And then that's why you'll see in the left eye, you'll see a lot of congestion all in this bottom area right here because of the correlation with the colon, So that's the chart of the iridology chart. Now let's keep moving because I want to try to get as much of this information in that I can while I still have a chance to talk with you guys, because, I'm really enjoying this presentation. Okay, now this is what I was explaining. This is some examples of the neural arch weakness that is very important. And I see this part right here is very important to share, because this is what helps us. When you understand this and you understand the neural arch connection, then you can understand why you have certain symptoms that come up during detoxing. And the most common one that I see is the neural arch reflex seen in heart problems or heart symptoms. The diverticula located midway down the descending colon can reflexly interfere with nerve impulses to the heart, resulting in arrhythmias or heart palpitations. I cannot begin to tell you guys how many times I've had people tell me, they're like, Thad, I've had to go to the doctor several times because I keep having heart palpitations and arrhythmias, and I keep worried about something's wrong with my heart. I keep worrying about if I'm going to have a heart attack. And I'm like, well, ironically, that worry and anxiety and stress you're having is actually making your heart palpitations worse because of how the worry and anxiety and stress is affecting the nervous system. So see, a lot of times if they would just center themselves, do some deep breathing, do some meditation, those heart palpitations will go away. Now, of course, they can be caused from other sources too, like medications and other toxicity and other things, but a lot of times it's the power of the mind, and it's the mind in overthinking, over worry. Because what happens when we overthink and we over worry, we breathe too shallow, So again, breathing is breath. I mean, breathing is life because, it's air, it's oxygen, But then it goes on and it says, symptoms associated with bowel irritation may manifest in the heart, but in such a case, there's nothing wrong with the heart itself. Dr. Jensen. And then that's what I was saying I've given so many readings over the last 5 years, and this is by far the most common, And then another great example of the nerve interference that can result from chronic irritation is at the sigmoid flexure of the colon. In females, the reflex area most associated with this is the ovaries. I know from experience that many an ovarian condition or menstrual problem is associated with this. I cannot help but wonder how many doctors think of the bowel when their patients complain of these troubles. And then the last one that's real common is a spleen weakness from the sigmoid colon flexure weakness, which when one has a strong weakness in the spleen, they can have a tendency to over worry and have chronic levels of stress and anxiety. And it makes it even more complex for the individual when they have both a neural arch weakness in the heart and the sigmoid area. And that's what I explain in the next slide. And when I zoom in on this one individual that I wanted to share with you, so you can actually see it in the iris, is this lady right over here. This was a lady that was in our communities online, and she would always worry, have anxiety, have stress. She would always ask so many questions. She would always have so much fear coming up. When I talked to her on the phone in a discovery call, she just was a worry wart. She worried about everything. And I thought in my mind, as I was talking to her and as I've known her throughout the years in the group, I mean, in our communities, I'm like, I bet she has a spleen weakness, and I bet it's a genetic spleen weakness. And sure enough, when she finally sent me her eyes, there it is, that red arrow. That's that genetically chronic spleen weakness, but that's also in the area of that sigmoid colon flexure. So it's the genetic weakness that is irritated by the things going on in her bowels and her life. And then see how that autonomic nerve wreath, that ropey looking wavy line, that's her nervous system, and how it's real wavy. That's because it's irritated. But then it goes even deeper than that for this individual. And it's very interesting how it all connects. The red arrow is the chronic spleen and sigmoid. The blue arrow is a chronic adrenal weakness. The white arrow is a chronic thyroid weakness. And the yellow arrow is a chronic hypothalamus/pituitary weakness. Notice how the adrenal weakness is in line with the master gland weaknesses that show, and that shows they are connected. See, this is the adrenals right here, and this is the hypothalamus and the pituitary. And see how they're directly across from each other? Dr. Jensen said, when you see that in iridology, that means they're connected. And then over here, this is the thyroid and the parathyroid. So see, she has low metabolism. She has congestion of lymphatic waste and pollution. She has lots of stress. She has some stress rings. She has a wavy iris, autonomic nerve wreath. She has some under acid stomach going on. That's what that ring is around her stomach there. That's what it looks kind of red or pink looking. So see, she has a lot going on just in one half of her body. You know, that's not even talking about her right eye. And then these other two photographs, I don't have to talk about them as much because we've already covered it. But this top left one, this left one, it's the same thing. It's the white area. White arrow is the sigmoid flexure, and then right beside the white arrow, like I'll zoom in again, right here, that is the hormones. That's the either the ovaries in a female or the testes in the male. That's the sigmoid flexure, and then that's the spleen again. That's the heart zone, and then the yellow arrow, that is the aortic valve, the top of the heart, and also the shoulder. And the shoulder weakness is very common. It's more common sometimes in females than it is even in males. But 9 times out of 10, when I hear that as a symptom that people tell me, when I give them a health questionnaire to fill out, then I look at their eyes and I see, well, that's the reason why they're feeling all that pain and inflammation in their shoulders and in their scapula and their shoulder blades, is because all that acid congestion draining from their head, it's irritating that genetic weakness right there in their iris. You know, so that's why you can definitely see, you can correlate the symptomology that one person has to the iris indications in the eye, you know. So it's very fascinating. That's why I love sharing it with people. But now,
I wanted to ask you about
okay.
the eye conditions. Where do they show up in the iridology reading, like such as nearsightedness or farsightedness or cataract, or which area shows us all those eye conditions?
Well, cataracts, that's the only one that I know how we can see it, you know, you see the pupil can have a fuzzy white layer over the top of the pupil. But now, as far as the nearsightedness and all of those other things, I really don't know how to read that, you know, because that wasn't something that Dr. Jensen and those taught, you know. And now, of course, other methods of iridology may go over that, but I haven't learned about that yet, you know, myself.
I
You
see.
know, so,
I see.
yeah.
Okay, so and without quitting this screen share, I just want to ask if anyone has any questions so far. Maybe something is unclear, or you would love to share something, guys. So just unmute yourself and ask your questions if you haven't. Okay. Okay. It looks like we can continue. So please.
Okay. Well, now I'm to a section of the presentation that is really important, because this is what the part where it really starts to get to the main core of my presentation today, on how that iridology and understanding what our eyes say and understanding what our body symptomology is telling us, how that helps us to navigate fasting easier. Because again, it goes back to emotions. Emotion stands for energy and motion. So we have to understand what's the energy going on in our body and what's the source of that energy, what's causing us to feel feel the emotions that we feel, and so that's why we have to understand all of these things, and that's why the more awareness we have, the deeper we can dive into what's the cause, and then the easier we can sit back and say, okay, well, now I have peace of mind. Now that I know what the cause is, I don't have to worry about the unknowns, because so many times we worry about things we don't even know about, just because it's like we have fear over the unknown, But Dr. Jensen, the last part of the chapter for the neural arch, he went over the emotions and the bowels, and I found it very fascinating. So I wanted to read this to you because it's very fascinating. He said, we have seen how the neural arch operates, reflex operates, and how the nerve paths can be established and felicitated from the bowel to other areas of the body. Now we must consider it in reverse. The colon is extremely sensitive and influenced greatly by every emotion, both positive and negative. Tell a quick little small story. I had a lady I gave a discovery call to. She said, Thad, why is it that when I have relatives come over and I get so excited, I haven't seen them in so long, that then after they leave, I crash and I feel so drained? I said, that's because you got so worked up. You got your energy so worked up that it drains your nervous system. And then it made your nervous system crash after they left. And then I have people before on discovery calls, they say, Thad, why is it on days when I feel good, I don't feel any really weaknesses in my body, but then on days when I feel really bad, either down emotionally or I have something that upset my body, I feel my stomach hurts me. I feel my heart palpitations. I feel more sensitivities. And I'm like, that's your nervous system. And it's reflecting those symptoms according to how your nervous system feels in that moment, And then he goes on and he says, it has been proven that unpleasant emotions can interfere with the peristalsis of the colon, regardless of how slight the excitement, anxiety, or apprehension is. Until now, we have merely, I meant to say merely, but it's the word correct got me. We have merely considered how nerve impulses coming from the bowel can affect other parts of the body, but there are also nerves going to the bowel. Thus, every emotion meditated via the nervous system has an effect upon the blood supply and the muscles of the colon. Our state of mind, that is, our thoughts, can felicitate the neural arch reflex, especially at the points in the bowel where there are inherent tissue weaknesses. This is the neural arch reflex in reverse. Fear and anxiety can have a profound effect, for the tense colon may respond with diarrhea or constipation as the nerve impulses carry the message of fright to the bowels. And I have seen that time after time with my clients. They will tell me, I had this lady one time, she was a young girl, she was in her early 20s. She was so skinny. She was having such a bad problem with her house and her home where she lived with her family. And she was in the environment where she lived. It was very heavily polluted and she didn't like where she was living. And she was so constipated that she was doing everything in her power. She was eating all fruit. She was taking the strongest colon cleanse, and nothing would get her from not being constipated. And I told her, I said, well, the reason why is because you have too much fright. Your nervous system is too frightened to allow your body to let go of the constipation, because that's what we're doing. Our bodies are holding on to it. We're not able to just go, let it go. Because as soon as you do that, literally your colon lets go of the waste, because it's not really weight that we're carrying, it's waste, and that's why when we get overweight, it's not weight, it's waste. And that's why it's very important to distinguish that difference in our mind. So what he says right here, I've seen it play out time and time again with my clients in their symptomology. And then he goes on, he says, anger and grief may cause the bowel to stop secreting and contracting, both of which are necessary for good digestion and for the evacuation of waste from the body. I therefore recommend my patients not to eat when they are upset or excited. He goes on to say in the book, I just didn't have the room to put it all on here. He said, that's why stress has no place at the dinner table. You don't want to argue. You don't want to talk about things with your loved ones that are irritating or stressful. Really, when you should eat in silence, because that way you're not consuming your emotions. Because when you eat in anxiety or fear or worry, you are eating those emotions and they get trapped down in the body, as well as the toxicity that builds up from the metabolic waste in the processing of that food. And a lot of people don't think about that they're literally eating their emotions. And then he goes on, he says, certain common bowel disorders are known to be linked to the mental side of being. It is known that colitis, for example, has as much to do with the thoughts and emotions as with the bowel. In fact, it has been clinically affirmed that nearly all functional bowel disorders have a definite mental counterpart. Inflammation of the bowel can be exacerbated and even brought on by nervous tension and stress. They say that 50% of all cancers and major health diseases are caused by emotional, mental, and spiritual, stress and unwellness, and so that's why it's very important, But that's the main part of the reading. The presentation. I don't have a whole lot more left to do, Eric, and then we can go on to answers. And now it's just really going into the markings of the iris and what they mean. These are just different ways that we can tell what the different markings mean in the iris. And then that's what I'm going to go into next. See, these are signs of high stress in the nervous system and in the iris. And see, all of these people, these individuals that have stress rings like that or cramp rings, these are people that get really overwhelmed real easily. They have lots of stress and anxiety, and their eyes are showing it. And they have lots of radiosolaris or rays or spokes of the wheel. And that's showing stress and anxiety. That's showing stagnation. That's showing pollution. And even in this brown eye in the top right, you can see how, they have all everything's cramped, all the autonomic nerve wreath, the stress rings, all the radiosolaris, everything's kind of cramped. And then these two photos down on the bottom, these are just showing you how the autonomic nerve wreath can look real ropey and raised. And same way as this one here too, in this blue eye, it looks like a rope or it looks real wavy. And that's showing they have major irritation in their colon wall, in their autonomic nervous system, But okay. And then now we're just getting into some different signs. That's what this means. It's the cramping, neurovascular cramping caused from anxiety, stress from the environment, finding its way in the body's tissues, resulting in rigidity, stiffness, and restriction of blood and nerve supply. It's also known as cramping, so it can indicate irritation, overstimulation of the central nervous system, just different things can cause that. And also weak adrenals can play a big role in that. And then this is what it looks like in a neurovascular cramp rings. And when you look at real high resolution, detailed photograph of the iris fibers, but that takes magnification. Actually, it goes beyond normal photography, Okay, and then this is another example of what radiosolaris looks like. I'm not going to read all these, but I'm just giving photos to explain what they are. But people, when they go back and watch the recording, they can read it too, So that's why I'm leaving the slide up long enough so they can read it, But yeah, these are just showing toxicity again. Just really think of the radiosolaris as toxicity. When you see that in your iris, it's a sign of toxicity, Okay, and then it goes to the scuff rim or skin ring. That's what I was talking about earlier, how we can have a skin ring around the iris. And that just means our skin is congested. And we can have toxic accumulants of the eliminative skin tissue to the degree and darkness and depth of the sign, and it means you have poor eliminating skin and metabolic imbalances due to a lack of silicone or due to a improper, thyroid function and hypothalamus and a lot of things, All right. And then this is just showing the picture of the autonomic nerve wreath and what it looks like, that ring around again of the bowel wall, like I talked about before. And then this is the same thing, how it shows that that's the same area where we see the colon, and it's the shape and depth and contour of the autonomic nerve wreath, All right, and then this is what we talked about earlier, the absorption ring, just showing how we can be malabsorbed, and how that's very important because, if we're malabsorbed, we're not absorbing our vitamins, minerals, and nutrients, and we can get really skinny. That's what makes us get really skinny when we do lots of detoxing or fasting, is because we have malabsorption. Once we correct malabsorption, then we don't have a problem with getting really skinny a lot of times, so that's really important to remember about when we have malabsorption, And then a cholesterol or sodium ring, that's what, when you see a real strong hazy ring around the iris of the eye, and you can see it in an individual, they have a lot of cholesterol buildup, or sometimes it could be from sodium buildup too. That's one of the things. But most of the time, it's from consuming too much saturated fats, too much heated fats, like too much fried foods, too much foods cooked in oil, too much sauteed foods, things like that. And then this is just showing how the person has lots of inflammation in the body, and so I'll leave it for a couple more seconds so people can read it, later. But yeah, it's just pretty much showing lots of signs of irritation in the body due to inflammation, And then this is an under acid stomach ring. This ring around the stomach here, that's an under acid stomach ring. That's what it looks like. If it's an over acid stomach ring, it would be real white. You would see white around this area. But that's another individual that has really weak genetics and constitution as well. And that's another professional quality photograph, All right, and then you have lymphatic rosary. Lymphatic rosary is all these little dots, that go around the peripheral of the iris. That's another indication of it. And actually, I messed up and I've put it in there twice. This is the photo I meant to use, so you can see it better. I'll have to go back and edit that later when I use this as a PDF. But yeah, this is the lymphatic rosary that I was going to show because it's a better photograph than that other one. But that's also where you see the lymph nodes. And that when you see that, that means the person's lymph nodes are congested in their body. And they could also feel that in certain areas of their body too. They could feel hard, they could feel swollen, they could feel irritated. We have some in our neck. We have some everywhere, but the largest concentration is in right above our breast and our armpit. And that's why it's so important for ladies not to overwear their bras and stuff, because it can congest and put too much pressure on those lymph nodes in that area. And then the other bigger section of them we have is right there above our two legs and our crotch area, and the abdomen area. And then venous congestion. This is the last slide of these. This is just a blue ring you see sometimes around the edge of the iris, and that can show that they have a lack of circulation. Now, the last section of the report that is very interesting that we want to talk about, and this kind of like wraps it all up, and then it will be the last part of my presentation, is what do the brain flares mean in iridology? See, this is very, very important for us to understand when we're going through fasting, because when we understand this part, this is why I left this for last, because when we understand this part, we can truly understand why we behave the way we do, why we think the way we do, why we act the way we do, why we can't let go of the shame and the guilt, and why we have the abandonment wounds, why we have the feelings of regret, why we have the feelings of unforgiveness, why we have the feelings of I'm not worthy, I'm unlovable, I'm not good enough, all those things. And it's so much because of these situations that's going on in the brain. And see, he has it divided into two sections, the physiological part of the brain and the psychological part of the brain. And that's on both irises. This is the right iris on the left here, where my cursor is. And this is the the left iris over here on the right side of the screen, And that's just a photograph of what they look like. Now, we'll go over some. Of course, I'm going to leave it up and then let people read it later. Just let me go back up here so I can zoom in on it, because I'm not going to read it all because it'd take too long, but I wanted to still post it on the screen so people could read it. But this is very important for us to understand. Let me get it back up here. Yeah, this is very important for us to understand because it shows like the normal function of the mental ability. When you see that in the eye is, intelligent, logical thinking, personality, reasoning, voluntary movement, memory, willpower. And then the normal functions of it, you can have all these different little symptoms, and different things that are going on. And I hope you guys can read that. I may need to zoom in on a little bit more, for the recording. There we go. Because I want people to be able to read this on recording if they want to go back and pause it. But see, we can have all these different symptoms in the normal, but then look at the hypo or abnormal or the hyper or hypo activity, cunning, confusion, suspicion, recklessness, hopelessness, neglect, poisoning thoughts, mental blocks, lack of control, sense of futility, mental chatter, tension, dominance, see all these different symptoms. And that's just in that one area of the iris flares. Okay, then moving on to the acquired mental speech, it goes to the same thing. You have all these different symptoms, see, it tells you what the normal function is. It tells you the location, like the cerebrum, the thalamus, the forebrain, the pineal, the pituitary. And then it shows you all these different symptoms that we can experience in the normal. And then it shows you the abnormal: slow learning, forgetfulness, poor attitude, stuttering, stammering, lack of concentration, social maladjustment, dyslexia, and then it goes on to the ego pressure. This is one that I really find very fascinating, because this shows the role of the ego, and it shows how we give the ego too much dominance and it ends up controlling us, and this is the cerebrum, the pituitary, and the hypothalamus. It helps with blood pressure regulation, decision making, psychological stress and reactions, willpower, psychological stress responses, anxiety, tension, and then the normal function is desire, power, assertiveness, all of the self-image, ideals, ego balance, ambition, leadership, self-reliance. But look at the hyper: envy, inferiority, pride, selfishness, fear, prejudice, criticism, nasty temper, greed, hate, anger, aggressiveness. It even goes on down: inordinate love of money, unfair use of power, impatientness, stubbornness, narcissism, exploitation, sarcasm. And the narcissism part, I have literally seen where people would tell me that they have those tendencies, and then I would look at their eyes and I would say, well, there it is in their eyes. They have a weakness in that area, and that's why they're acting like a narcissism. They're acting like an individual that has those symptoms, and so that's why I'm telling you that eyes definitely show the correlation to these behaviors that we can have, and you can change these behaviors by changing your genetics, and so that way you can unlearn what you've learned just from your habits, because these people had these weaknesses when they were younger and they thought that was just their personality, when no, that was just their symptoms that they were being expressed from their body, and then they thought that that was their personality. Remember, as they say, your personality is your personal view of reality. So we can change that, and we all have a different view of our reality. So we all have a different personality, and then going on the five senses area. It's a little zoomed in too much. Let me back up some. And it's the cerebral cortex, gnostic area. It's not as many things, just a few different things going on there. And then you got animation life. That's another area where you see the hypothalamus at. That's where that one lady had that strong hypothalamus and pituitary weakness that I showed you in a picture before. Seeing there, it says hypothalamus, soma energy center, the psyche or the cortex. We can have vitality, fatigue, appetite, innervation. That's all dealing with that animation life area. And then we can have, abnormal restlessness, hyperactivity, laziness, dullness, despondency, suicidal tendencies, depression, all these different symptoms, so see, you get it, what I'm getting at with explaining the different ones. So here's sensory locomotion.
But I just want to ask the question. So basically they take the iris and they divide the iris into those strips, as I understand, or maybe I misunderstood it. Yeah. So
that's right.
The strips,
those are called flares. Flares.
Yeah. And each strip, or it's called flares, right? Flares.
Flares.
Yeah, and each flare shows a particular aspect of bodily conditions, but they're also related to psychic conditions, right?
It shows like, look, I'll show you. If well, it won't show me anyways. If I scroll back up to that photograph where it showed all the brain flares, it just shows that the brain flares is the largest section of the iridology chart, and there's a reason why Dr. Jensen did that, is because he showed that so much of understanding what's going on up in our head and those brain flares, because remember, as I said before, one side is the physiological part of the brain and the other side is the psychological part of the brain. brain, and that's for both eyes. So see, you kind of can think of the brain again as divided in half. So that's why also we have a right side of the brain and we have a left side of the brain. And remember, as they say in our spiritual cultures, those sides of the brain need to be balanced. If they're off, we can have different, characteristics. Like a savant, he has more use of his right side of his brain, and his left side of his brain is damaged. I think I got that right. And that's why he can do those crazy savant things that the savant can do. And then the person that's too much left side of their brain is very logical. They don't have any creativity. They don't have any artistic expression of themselves, because that's all dealing with the right side of the brain again. That's also why savant can, a lot of them, they can sit down and they can play a piano, and you can tell them, you can play the song for them, and then they'll play it back to you, because that's that right side of the brain that's it's over hyper. It's trying to overcompensate for the left side of the brain being damaged. So again, when we do meditation, when we practice deep breathing, we want to practice what's called alternate nasal breathing, because what that does, when you breathe in from this nasal and you hold this nasal, and then you change it up, you keep alternating it. That's helping balance the right and left hemispheres of the brain. So it's very interesting. So yeah, that's why I wanted to share this part on the last of my presentation, because I really feel like when people look at their eyes and they get a good photograph of their eyes, and then they understand this information, or they get someone to read it for them and tell them what they see, then it helps you to know so much more about your symptomology. And that's how I work with people, and I'm able to help them so well, is because when I compare what the eyes say with your symptomology, then I really can understand what's going on in your body completely, and why you're having the experiences you're having, why you've had the history of your life that you've had. And so that's why I brought all this to everyone today in a presentation, because I find it's very important information. So let me finish what I have left. I don't have much left, and then we'll go to some questions if we still have time, Eric.
Yeah, we still have time. We have unlimited
Okay.
time. Yeah, we can
Okay.
no problem.
Well, thank you, because I want it to be a complete presentation. I was just trying to keep it as condensed as I could.
Yeah,
All right.
it's lots of information, and I feel like
Yeah.
people who are really interested and want to understand more, they will need to rewatch it, maybe even a few times, to really read what is written. But it's really, really helpful what you're explaining, because after rewatching that, people can really get it deeper, I guess, in case someone want to. Yeah. Now, and we have something in the chat.
Okay.
So someone says, "Wow," and then another woman says, "Fantastic presentation, Todd. I learned so much. Thank you." Wow.
Yes.
Amazing.
Well, thank you, guys.
Yeah. Beautiful.
I'm trying to make it really, a good presentation to really show how deep it can go, because a lot of people don't realize why the ancients said the eyes are the windows to our soul, and we can see so much inside the body. And the reason why I have such a strong passion for iridology is because the elite forces, or the what do you call it, the dark forces or whatever of humanity that want to suppress us humans, they like to call iridology quackery. You know why? Because it works too good. You can see symptoms in your eyes before you ever experience you can see, let me back up, you can see weaknesses in your eyes before you even experience the symptoms. That's why getting an iridology reading for your children is very important, because then they can understand what areas are stronger or weaker of their body, and then they can know how to support those areas better as they go throughout their life. And that will prevent them from having certain illnesses and diseases if they live according to how to keep that from coming about. And that's why the medical association doesn't like iridology, is because it prevents you from like having these things happen as much if you take control of your power and you do something about it. So that's one reason, is it works too good. It's not a treatment enough, it's too preventative. So that's why I like it, is because it's empowering us to take control of our own health. But yeah, okay, I'll keep going. This one we left off on was called sensory locomotion. It's the mid-cortex, kinesthetic, sensory motor area, muscle coordination, as normal function, magnetism, sensation of the heart, cold, pain, touch, pressure, tension, movement. And then normal functions, they extend perception, motor sensory type, reaction to sound and light, limit of muscular exertion, physical fitness, muscle, mental coordination. And then when it's hyper or hypo, it's uncoordination, lack of sensation or exhaustion. And then the next one that's really important is the inherent mental. And the inherent mental is where you again see the hypothalamus at. And it's also the brain stem and the midbrain. And it's the normal function is survival instincts, social instincts, stamina, emotions, will, social imitation, hallucinations, obsessions, concentration. And then normal attributes, optimism, courage, will, love, individuality, concentration, intensity of attention, imagination, independence, all these great things, spirit, zest for life, awareness of indwelling spirit, all these great things about us. But then the abnormal, impatience, hallucinations. A lot of people think, hallucinations only come from substances. No, they come from weaknesses in the brain too, And then obsessions, melancholy, inability to comprehend, vacant mindedness, habitual inattention, mental turbulence, dogmatic actions, submission, spinelessness, self-condemnation, it just goes on, alienation, suicide even, and then daydreams, delusion, envy, fate, instability, all kind of different things. And then now let me back up some. The next one is the equilibrium dizziness, and this is one of the last ones. This shows when a person has a weakness there, just like it says, they can have a problem with their balance and their equilibrium and their dizziness. And that's because it deals a lot with the cerebellum. And a lot of times people feel that when you feel, like some sensations or some weakness in the back part of your head where your cerebellum is, you can have a weakness in that area. So see, again, you can correlate the symptoms you have with what your eyes tell you, And it's dealing with equilibrium, autonomic muscle coordination, dynamic energy center, sexual activity. The attributes are normal function, discrimination, sense of balance, stability, security, and then abnormal, epilepsy, faintness, dizziness, impaired muscular response. And then the last one is the medulla. No, there's two more. I'm sorry. Medulla is the respiration, heart, vascular center, swallowing, hiccuping, sneezing, vomiting, coughing, salivation. Those are all normal. Survival, preservation of vital functions. That's the normal, the extension of normal function. And then the abnormal is breathing tension, head colds, weakening arterial and venous circulation, catarrh, and shallow breathing. See, mucus. The catarrh is the old word for mucus. So you can have, when you have a congestion in the medulla, you can have more mucus in the head, and you can also have shallow breathing. And then this is the last one. This is a sex impulse or mentality. This deals with the cerebrum, the hypothalamus, the limbic system, and the pituitary gland. It deals normal functions, attraction, sexual responsiveness, reproduction. And then it has normal extension, creativity, motivation, excitement, imagination, exhilaration. And then the abnormal, you can have sexual apathy, like a lack of desire to have sex, perversion, violence, combativeness, irritation, competitiveness, lassitude, vanity, self-centeredness. And that's very interesting how you can, again, look at those symptoms that people have and you can correlate it to their behavior, and you can see that. Okay, and then
just a moment, Tadeu, but I think on the previous slide, this area was towards right, and now it is towards left. Or
that's because I'll show you up here. Let's go back for a second. See right here. See the left eye, the medulla is on this side. Okay. The right eye, the medulla is on this side. See, they're in different areas. And then you always have the equilibrium dizziness center is on the left eye. And then you always have the sex impulse on the right eye. And that's the only one you see on those areas. But then the ego pressure, see, the ego pressure is here in the psychological part of the brain, and that's also we're dealing with the ego. It's right above the master glands, the pituitary and the pituitary and the hypothalamus. And so it's very interesting how when we have weaknesses in that area, that's also what affects the ego pressure. It also affects the five senses area. It affects the acquired mental speech. It affects all that. And then the pineal, when we have a weakness there, not only does it affect our sleep, but it affects our mental ability and our forehead and our temple, because that's also your third eye. So see, again, dealing with the pineal and the third eye and the forehead and the temple so that's why a lot of times we see all this congestion, because also when you look, let me go way back to the chart just for a second. When you look at the top where those master glands are, well, I went too far. When you look at where those master glands, I'll show you. Let me get back to it. There it is. See, when you look, let me zoom in on it because it's important to show you again. See right here, the transverse colon, well, right here, all in this area, that's where you also see the sinuses at in the iris. And it's all dealing with how congested the transverse colon is. It's all affecting not only the brain flares, but it's also affecting the master glands, the pituitary and the pineal and all that too. So see, that's all of that area is very important that we understand. That's why, as Dr. Jensen said, the brain flares in this top portion of the iris is the biggest section that's dedicated to just one area of the body, because all these other areas are only just one certain area, and so that's why he made the chart the way he did. Because it's very, very important part to understand. That's why I left it for last, because it's an important section. But does anyone else have any more questions before I do my conclusion?
Hi there.
Hello.
Hi there. It's Angela from the UK. I just wanted to ask you, when people do these fasts,
Sorry about that.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. I'm sorry about that. I got a telephone call.
Not a problem. I was asking, when somebody does a detoxification or a fast, how long does it take you to pick up the changes, especially around the colon or the endocrine glands? Can you pick it up immediately, or is it quite a period before you see significant changes?
Well, as I mentioned before, from my experience, as well as other people's experience that have been my clients and just other people I've talked to in our communities over the years, is that usually, unless you're doing lots of really, really strong detoxification and fasting, and you are in that more acute stage and you're not as much in the hypo stage, that means your body's not as genetically weak and not as physically weak as some people, then some people's body can respond so much faster than others. And the fastest I've seen people's eyes change and their symptoms greatly improve was about 6 months. And then most people, it takes a year, so to see noticeable changes in the iris. But again, that's all dealing with how well they do the work necessary to see those changes, because it all comes back down to how much work we do determines the results we get, yeah.
Okay, great. I'm asking because we use bioresonance machines, and they give you the Iridology also when you do the scans. And when we work with cancer patients, it's quite significant how we can see changes in the eyes, but I don't have a way to measure how accurate that is. I mean, I know that they recover, put it that way. So, but I actually would be, I haven't tested the Iridology, but I have tested the machinery, put it that way. But it would be fascinating to actually do live Iridology on a live client and compare it to on a scan, to see if it works just as well.
Ja, det var bra. Även en kniv tror jag om man vill.
I think we have a hot mic, Eric.
Yeah.
Eric?
Just a moment.
I
Just
think
a
we
moment.
have a hot mic.
Yes.
Sorry. See, I lost you.
Yes, you're right, ma'am, is that there is different methodologies and different things we can do to analyze look at the iris in different ways. But I've had some people talk to me about different methods, and I just don't really have as much experience in those methods, so I can't really make a lot of comments on it, because I don't have enough experience with using those methods, because I'm still in the process of, still growing and learning about all these different ways that we can detect and read the body in different ways too, so I kind of leave it out there that, I'm open to learning more information, but I really can't speak on some of it because I don't know enough about it,
But you know quite a bit. Thank you. I enjoyed your presentation. It was very comprehensive and well prepared. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Well, does anyone else have any more questions before I do my conclusions? And then we can really go into more questions about everything.
No, okay, I think we can
All right.
conclude and then
All
we'll
right.
go to the questions.
Yeah, I just had a couple last slides of my conclusion. Let me get down to it. Thank you guys for your patience as I've worked through all this. This is the last slide I had before the conclusion. Actually, it said, remember when you get an iridology reading to compare what weak areas you have in the brain flares to the symptomology, to your symptoms. So you can learn what behaviors could be making your detox or fasting journey more difficult than it has to be. This is why understanding this info I'm sharing with you all today is so useful, especially long-term on your healing journey. The more we make the unknown conscious, we reprogram the subconscious or higher conscious part of the brain. Then that creates new behaviors, new thoughts, new ways of thinking to ourselves. No, excuse me, new ways of talking to ourselves, new ways of talking with others, and not letting them talk to us in a negative way. Also, it helps us to set healthier boundaries, And then remember, you are a frequency of energy. What you give out, you get back. That is a universal law, just like cause and effect. From this awareness, you create a new reality. Remember, your personality is your personal view of reality. And then my conclusion was, today's presentation was to show how iridology can help make fasting a more enjoyable experience. Well, the simple answer is conscious awareness. No, excuse me, I meant to say, how can iridology make, well, the simple answer is conscious awareness. The more you know about the more we know about our symptomology and how our brains work, the easier we can work to create new versions of ourselves. The fasting and health journey is not an obsession. It is to be enjoyed, the process of refinement. The reason why I said that is that sometimes people get too much into fasting and too much into their health journey, and they always feel like, I still have something to fix. I have something to work on. I have something that I need to do. They never achieve their dream because they never realize that we're always going to have something to work on. That's the joy of being a human. We're always here to learn and to grow. We're never going to get to a state where that ends and that stops, so we don't want to be obsessed that we feel like we have to get to some destination to be happy, because that tomorrow never comes. It's only the next now. I remember a joke someone said that they had a person in a bar, they had on the wall, they said, free drinks tomorrow. But then every time tomorrow came, they said, well, today's not tomorrow, and it was just showing that, the future is only the next now. So we need to just take it one day at a time and have so much gratitude and appreciation for what we have today, and to not be too hung up on and obsessed about what the future holds. It's okay to have goals and dreams about what we would like to achieve, but don't get attached to those, and don't be attached to the desire of the outcome. Be open to flexibility, because remember, guys, we get what we need in life, not what we want always, because a lot of times what we get is what we actually need. It's just the mind can't see that divine plan. It can't see that this, and this has to happen before you can have what you want to happen. You have to go with the flow sometimes and allow life to bring you what you need. If you need to go through a dark period of your life, a dark night of the soul, or an ego restructuring, embrace it, because it's there to help you to grow. It's not there to punish you in some way. It's there to help you to grow. But I go on and I say, so many times we struggle to a lack of understanding on what is the true cause, what the true cause is, and how do I live in ways that, and how I live in ways that creates a new, new healthier reality. So my wish for you today, my wish for today's presentation is that I helped you learn about what our eyes can inform us about, the color of our eyes, the genetic strengths and weaknesses, how strong or weak our nervous system is, how much buildup of the lymphatic waste and other pollution do I have, and what weaknesses do I have in my brain that could be contributing to my thinking, speaking, and acting. Remember, iridology is just a tool, but one of the best diagnostic tools we have. I wish for every one of you to have the most balanced spiritual, mental, emotional, and physical journey to Wellville. Much love, my friend Thaddeus. And then the last slide I want to show you is, this is what I actually have I had a friend, they actually just brought me these books, and they told me that there was this man that was teaching about how to learn about behavioral iridology and how we can learn about our personality and about how we act the way we do in iridology too. And so I'm just now starting to dive into that subject. So I haven't learned enough about it to share with you guys, today, but also that would have made the presentation even way longer, so really it needs to be a whole separate presentation, because this approach is kind of quite different from what I've already read in the first book here, the assessment through the eyes, this first one on the left. It's quite a bit different than normal iridology, because it's just showing you the way they interpret a lot of these different signs that's going on in the eyes. It can correlate to different personality types that we have, so it's really interesting. And I love having these things when they come to me. It's kind of like divine source or God is saying, hey, Thad, here's some more information that can help you on your journey. Because, I didn't go searching for this information. It came to me, just like everything great that happens in our lives. A lot of times it comes to us when we need it, just like they say, the master shows up when the student is ready, So yeah, that's the last thing. And then I have for any of those that are interested in getting iridology reading with me and need some instructions on how to take good quality eye photos, I have a great PDF that I made that I can send you. And it goes into full detail, just like this presentation today, about how to take photographs of your eyes and do it in the right way. And I also have a video I made on my YouTube channel, Journey to Wellville, as well. And then last thing is that I have an iridology contest going on right now until December the 15th. That's the deadline to enter. And I give away my largest iridology package that I offer. It's a $500 value. It comes with a full detailed reading. It comes with a herbal protocol, and it comes with a 2-hour follow-up Zoom call that is kind of like today's presentation. It goes in depth fully into your iris and your eyes and explains to you like what all is about, just your specific characteristics of your eyes. And then we also talk about the herbs and different herbs that can help. And then for any of those that don't get to enter the contest, I also have all my services off for 10% to the end of the year. And you can just send me an email if anyone's ever interested, so that's all of my presentation for today, Eric. And thank you so much for allowing me the time to give the presentation.
Thank you so much, Thad. So we will put all the details, all your contact details below this video, so people who are interested might contact you. And guys, so now we are opening our mics, and you're welcome to unmute yourself and ask your questions. Feel free. We have unlimited time, so no problem. Whatever questions you have, we will answer.
Thank
Yes,
you, Thad. Thank you,
I
Eric.
would
One person at a time, though.
Yes, okay, Revital, go on.
Okay, first of all, it was fascinating listening to it. Thank you very much. And of course, it's a lot of information, so it's just probably the tip of the iceberg.
Oh,
so anyway, I just what do doctors study? If so what did they don't know all of this, so it's just...
Well, you know why, don't you? Is because most medical associations are in it for a business. It's sick care, not health care. And they're in it for treatment processes only. They're not in it for prevention. They're not in it to help you to figure out what to do about it before it ever gets chronic. Did you know it takes usually a decade for cancer to become noticeable in a lot of people's body? Well, if they had been doing something about it right after it first happened, then they probably would have never progressed into full-blown cancer. But see, people wait until they have a blowout on their vehicle, or like a tire blows out on your vehicle, your body, before they do something about it. Well, if we take care of our vehicles better, then we get more out of the vehicle. I love to use the analogy of the vehicle, because did you know there was a man one time, he was a master mechanic. He got 1,000,000 miles on a Toyota Camry, and they gave him a brand new car because he showed how well the car would last if you did all the proper maintenance on time, scheduling, and all the proper care of that vehicle. And so that's the same way I give the analogy of us taking care of our bodies. If we just really make health a true priority, and how we spend our time in our life, because your health is number two. How you spend your time in life is number one, because you're never going to get your time back. So how you spend your time is number one. Your health is number two. Everything else comes after that, so we need to make that a major priority, and then we will reap the rewards from those choices.
Yeah, and so on the one hand, the doctors they're actually poisoning us.
That's right.
And on the other hand, it's amazing how much the body can, take, how much toxicity, and
it's very resilient. Yeah.
Yeah. So, both these, so, it's just amazing. And another thing I just wanted to ask, for instance, how many, from your experience, how many years is it going to take to fully detox? We're so full of toxins, apparently also genetic ones. So if we live this, now we are aware and we're conscious, and we live, being a raw vegan and fasting and all this lifestyle. So how long is it going to take? And if you don't have a special, something that, maybe maybe potentially, but, nothing is wrong, but, we were all full of toxicity. So how many years is it going to, for somebody average, not with anything special, to detox? Or is it possible to completely detox? Is that possible to be 100% clean?
I can answer those questions the best that I possibly can. Is that, first off, we have to understand that the question you're asking is very common. People ask me all the time as a coach, they're like, Dad, so now that you know more about me, and you've read my eyes, you've looked at my health questionnaire, we've talked enough times, you know all this information about me, how long do you think it will take for me to get my health back? And I will say, well, you're asking a question that only your body knows the answer. You only can discover that by going on the journey, because we're all individuals that no one is alike. We're all like a snowflake. There's no two snowflakes that are identical. They're all different. So every person is a little bit different in their own genetic differences, their own ways of thinking, their own ways of living, their own levels of trauma, drama, hardship they've had to experience, their own environments where they've grown up, their own family connections, all the trauma and the drama that's been passed down in that family genetics and that family collective, energy, and then also the world's collective energy and the different regions where we live. There's so many different variables that it's just really hard to give a time limit. But speaking generally, if the person has medium to strong genetics, it can take them only 6 months to a year to really see a lot of benefits and changes if they work real hard at it, or at least a pretty good hard at it, like a good attempt at it. But if you take someone, though, that's really genetically weak and has really strong genetic weakness, they have a really low metabolism, they have really weak a nervous system, then it could take them a few years, But again, we don't want to think of it as I'm running out of time. I don't want to spend that long, because, life is a great unfoldment. We need to just take it one day at a time and just say, hey, the journey is to be enjoyed. See, a lot of times people, when I tell them the name of my group that I got inspired from Dr. Morris, Journey to Wellville, where they're like, well, you're always searching for that Wellville. No, it's the journey to be enjoyed. That's the thing that we need to remember. We're enjoying the journey. We're not going for the destination. If we get to the destination, that's great and everything, but we're never going to find that perfection, because that's an actual wounding pattern from our trauma and dramas. We don't want to achieve perfection. Actually, it's better to be imperfect than perfect, because through that imperfection, we find our own uniqueness. So we don't want to be really perfect. We just want to achieve the greatest refinement that we can achieve. And that's just going through all these practices of fasting, eating properly, managing our stress, trying to think harmoniously, trying to have more peace, trying to have more love, more gratitude, all that. We're just trying to live in a way that creates the reality we want to experience. You know, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to put all this energy and these efforts into creating the life that you want to live and experience every day, the next now to the next now to the next now. So just don't get too hung up on, you know, thinking too much of the future when the future isn't even here, when you don't know if this, and this has to happen before you can even get to there. And you didn't know that this was going to happen, that was going to make you have to go back a little bit and redo some of this before you could get over here to this, you know. You know, it's so many unknown variables that we can ponder on it, we can think about it, but we really don't really have the true answers for it. We only find the answers through discovering the journey and where the path takes us, you know.
You see, also, you can't measure these things.
That's
I mean,
right.
you do
That's
feel improvement, and you don't know how much more you need to improve, how
That's
much
right.
else is left.
That's right. Well,
Yeah.
think of it this way real simply, is that only reason why we're all doing these things to improve our health is just so we can enjoy our human experience to the fullest. You know, it's not an obsession that we have to be as healthy as we can or we're not going to be happy. A lot of times we just have to be grateful for what we have, like remind ourselves, at least we can see, at least we can walk, at least we have the functioning of all of our limbs, and at least we're not paralyzed. At least, you know, be grateful for the small things that we take for granted. Because as soon as you start having something going wrong with your eyes and you start thinking you're going to lose your vision, you're like, damn, I took my vision for granted all this time, you know. You know, and so then you start to realize that there's so many things in life that, you know, we just take it for granted, when really that was way more important than this other thing that we're really trying to go for, like money, fame, have a nice house, all these fancy vehicles and cars and toys we play with. You know, we put too much value in those things instead of the things that really matter at the end of the day. Because, you know, as they say, they've asked people on their deathbed, what was something that if you could go back, you would do more? And they said, spend more time living life in a more adventurous and fulfilling way, instead of looking back and saying, I wish I'd have done more, you know.
Okay,
Amazing.
thank you very much. Very inspiring, a lot of information, a lot of inspiration. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
You're welcome.
Ravi, so please ask your question.
Oh, you're muted. We can't
Yeah,
hear you.
you're muted. Yeah, you have to unmute yourself.
Thank you, Tad. It's a really wonderful presentation. I truly enjoyed it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Especially the concluding remarks. I love the way you presented the gratefulness, thankfulness. That is much appreciated. That is much, much appreciated. I have two questions. One is about your services that you mentioned. How do I sign up for the services? And second question is, you talked about detoxing and the bowel movements and all that stuff. Would you recommend any herb that would give anybody an optimal, digestive health? The really good bowel movement, the strange, the painless bowel movements, regular. Do you recommend any kind of spices or herbs that would help? These are two questions.
I got you. Well, the answer to the first question, which is my Iridology contest, you have, I don't know if you're on Facebook or not, but that's where I have all the information posted, but I can also send it to you in an email, you know. And the main thing that to qualify for the contest, the main thing you have to do is you have to just get me some good readable quality photos of your eyes. And now again, remember, taking brown eye photographs can be kind of challenging, you know, because they're so dark that you have to get not only the highest resolution camera you have, the newer model Samsung smartphones work better than these iPhones for brown eyes. But if you know anyone that has a professional quality camera, like a DSLR camera with a macro lens, you have to have the macro lens though, with a big camera, you know, then they can get you a good quality photography shot if they know how to do the photography the right way. But you can do it with the smartphones. It's just challenging because you have to use side lighting. You have to take, see, I have right here.
I have my iPhone too. I have my iPhone.
Yeah, you can do that, but you have to get a small flashlight or torch, as you guys call in England.
Side,
you know?
okay.
Yeah, and you shine it from the side of the iris. You can use another smartphone, the flashlight. You can do it that way too, but you have to get the angle just right, because when you shine it from the side of the iris, it illuminates the fibers. You know, see, like those photographs that I posted before. You know, see how even in the brown eye you could see those areas. That's how I have to read it. If the light is coming from the front, then you can't see those weaknesses. And so there's nothing there for me to read, so that's why it may be a little challenging for you to get some photographs, but just try to work on it the best you can in the next, 14 or 13 days, however long is left of the contest. And if you're not able to get some good quality shots, then I'm going to run a contest again sometime, but just, I can send you the information. I can send you my PDF on how to take the photographs. I can send you all those things so you can know the steps and how to do it. And then the other thing, the other requirements, I can send you a list on those too. It's nothing major. I just ask people to share my post on Facebook if you're a Facebook user, and then just be willing to have fill out a health questionnaire and be willing to have a Zoom call with me. Because some people, they're not willing to do all that. Then contest isn't for them, because that's the package I'm giving away, includes all those things. Yeah.
But if not the contest, if I just want to have my reading done, within a live setting with you, maybe a Zoom call or something, that is something you can do.
Oh, of course. And all of my services are 10% off to the end of the year. Yeah.
Okay. I
Yeah.
think I'll sign up
So
for
that's
one
the
of
difference in that. And then now to answer your second question about what herbs could help with the bowels, well, it all depends on where you live. And
I live in Texas.
Oh, you live in Texas. Okay. You sound like, if I'm not mistaken, you have an India accent.
I'm originally from India, but I'm here for the last 25 years or so. This morning I got back from Florida. I was
Oh,
in
great.
Florida on business, yes.
Yeah. Well, I really love Dr. Morse's formulas, because I've been so inspired by his, and I can actually save people some money when I order for my clients his formulas. So I could do that for you, but you don't have to always buy his formulas either. Like, just for an example, just going to the health food store, any health food store you have around your area, just go there and get you a bottle of Cascara Sagrada, or Triphalia. Triphalia is an herb from India, that is made of fruit fibers. And that's especially the Cascara will help your bowels to move. The Triphalia is going to give you more fiber that will help the bowels to move, but you got to just make sure that you're not constipated, because if you're constipated, you have to be careful with some of the fibers, because it could slow down your bowel transit speed, how fast things move through your bowels. But yeah, getting a gentle colon cleanser of some kind would help assist a person that has sluggish bowels. And Dr. Morse, he really makes, over the 16 years of me being a part of the health food store business that my parents have, is that Dr. Morse does really make a great bowel formula, because it doesn't create dependency. It doesn't create diarrhea. It doesn't create cramping if you don't take too much, because they're all gentle herbs. And it's more herbs to help to create bowel restoration. It's trying to help to restore proper function of the bowels. So it's very important, because again, if you don't have the bowels clean enough, then how can you help the rest of the body? Because you have to get the bowels clean enough so the central trunk of the body drains, and then that creates a suction effect that helps the head to start draining. See, the head can't start to drain until the central trunk starts to drain, and that takes getting the bowels clean enough. Well, it's not only in the inside of the bowels where all the waste builds up and all the cracks and the crevices, but it's also in the wall of that organ too. And it's just like an artery. You know how cholesterol builds up in the wall of an artery? Well, it's the same thing with the bowel congestion and waste, because it's lymphatic waste as well as chemical pollution, biofilms from candida and yeast, and just so many different things that builds up in the intestines, the small and the large intestines. And there's so many cracks and crevices and, turns and bends that things can get really built up and congested. And so that's why it's important to use the herbs, but also sometimes to do enemas and colonics too, for the large intestines, of course, because you can wash away a lot of mucus and pollution that could come out, of the large intestines. But the small intestines, really, to help to recover from malabsorption and other issues of the small intestines, you really need the herbs and enough of the astringent fruits like citrus, grapes, a watermelon, things that are astringent, things that pull on the body's tissues. That's why our mouth puckers up when we consume lemons and limes, is because that's astringency. Same thing as witch hazel and things that are astringent, it pulls on the body's tissues and it's helping to pull out that mucus and waste, Yeah.
Thank you, Ted. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Okay, guys, any more questions? If not, then we are going to wrap it up for tonight, for today.
I see some comments in the chat, but I don't know if there are any questions. Let's see.
Yeah,
No.
so someone says thank you, and then fantastic detail in your presentations. Your passion for the subject is infectious. That's great.
Thank you.
Amazing, so much information. Yeah, and then we have a question, but this woman already asked it.
Yeah.
It's fine. Yeah, basically just very good responses for the presentation. Yeah.
Yeah.
Rovital, do you have any more questions?
Regarding the contest, I'd like to know more details.
Well, well, here, let me do this and I can show you. See, I'll do it this way. This is that because if I have more people that are interested, if I go on here and on my browser, can y'all see my my browser? And
Yeah.
if I go to Facebook, see, this is my group on Facebook called Journey Wellville. Let me close out these messages, and let me refresh the page. This is my group on Facebook, and this is where I talk mostly to people. And on here, this is the post I made for today's presentation. But then let's see if I can find it. Yeah, here's the details of the contest, or well, no, that was a notice about it. There's another Zoom call that I'm having Sunday with a friend, a fellow detox specialist that I'm having a live Zoom call with them on Sunday. But let me find the post. I think, well, I don't see it on there, and I'm not going to keep scrolling to take up too much time. So I just go to my own personal Facebook page, and then I have it right here. Here's the rules. First off, I like to ask that people be a member to my group if they're on Facebook. If you're not on Facebook, you don't have to join Facebook just to join my group. Because remember, most of these people I'm giving the contest to, it was for my group, because I just celebrated 5 years of having my group on November the 22nd. So I kind of did the contest not only as an end of the year celebration, but for also in celebration for having the group for 5 years. And so I asked people to be a member of my group if they're on Facebook. And then I asked that you definitely get some good quality photographs. That's the main thing, and then you have to send them to me and let me verify that they're good enough for a reading, and then of course that you have to be willing to fill out a health questionnaire and have a 1 to 2 hour follow-up Zoom call. And that's because that's the package I'm giving away. And then I ask if you have a Facebook group, a Facebook membership, that you share this post on your Facebook page so others can know about it. And then I ask that you sign up for my emailing list on my website. And then if you're satisfied with my services, you'd be willing to give me a written review so I can share it on my social media pages. And that's all. And nothing too big, just nothing that's, not unrealistic for a $500 value. So yeah, that's my contest requirements. And then my website is just www.thadcheatham. And of course, Eric will post the link below, but I'm just showing you thadcheatham.com. And it comes up first on Google or DuckDuckGo. I like DuckDuckGo better because it doesn't doesn't censor our information. Google does. And this is just my story. And this is where you can sign up for a discovery call if you want a free discovery call with me, or you can sign up to be an insider with me. And then this is where it talks about my services and the prices that I have. And then remember, all of these services, regardless if you enter the contest or not, they're 10% off to the end of the year. And that can be a lot of savings for some of these bigger packages, of course, for those that are interested. So that's that information. I hope that helps you to see the qualifications for the contest.
So you send the pictures to www.
No, you send them to my email address. See there. So remember I said at the end of my let's see, let me go back to it. No, trying to find it again where I left off. I have so many windows open, I need to close some. Where did I think it was, yeah, right here. My email is journeytowellvilletc@gmail.com. And of course, that was that was in the end of the presentation. When you go back and watch the recording, that other slide that I made, this was a different slide that I made, but the other slide I made on the end on my presentation, you know, see if I open it up again right here, you know, this one, it had my email at the bottom. See, journey to Wellville tc@gmail.com. That's who you send the that's the address you send the photos to. But you have to remember, when you send the photos, you have to send them in their original size. You can't reduce the size to get them to fit in the email, because if you do, it'll make the photo digitally pixelated. You know, you have to send it to me in the original size of the photograph. You know, because that's the part of the challenges with digital photography and trying to send them through. And then sometimes, if they're professional grade shots, you have to use an uploading program like WeTransfer or Dropbox or something like that, because the file is so big. You know, but if it's just a regular photograph, a good photograph from a cell phone or something, then you want to send it to me from that phone that took it in its original size. Yeah.
So again, your email, a journey to Wellville.
TC. That's Thad Cheatham. Journey to Wellville tc@gmail.com.
Okay.
Yeah, and if you I think Eric will post all that stuff below in the video.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then that way you'll be able to find it, and you won't have to, because you know, I know it's a long address, and if you get a word mixed up or something, it won't work. And so
we'll post everything below the video. So
you'll find it.
Absolutely,
you'll find all the information.
Everything will be below the video, and tomorrow it will be uploaded anyway.
Facebook, email.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So that as soon as you get the email from us with the picture, normally how long was the turnaround time for you to get back to, okay, I'm ready for your thing, set up a Zoom call?
Well, if I'm not real backed up, I can get people's reports back to them in a week to 2 weeks. You know, because I have other people in the queue that's ahead. You know, and I have other people I have to talk to and all of that. And then plus, I have to give myself a little bit of room, because I've tried in the past to tell people I could get the reports back to them too soon. And then it's okay to tell people that I'll get your report back to you sooner than what I told you, but you don't need to tell people the other way, because then they're like, well, you told me a week, why haven't I got my report? And so I learned that I need to give myself a little bit of fudge room. Now, if I'm really backed up, I have to tell people 3 weeks, but that's if I have a lot of business, a lot of people, but then after I get the readings, the reports done, and if you want a follow-up phone call or you want a follow-up Zoom call, then I will send the reports to you in a PDF format, and you can review over them and write down any questions you have. And then we'll have the follow-up Zoom call or the phone call, and we'll talk about your questions and talk about the points and things in your report, and that's the way it works, Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. You're welcome.
Deadline, you're saying the deadline for the contest is
well, originally it was the 1st of this month, but I had to extend it, so I extended it to December the 15th.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, guys, so I think we're going to wrap it up for today. So thank you so much, Thad.
Thank you.
Thank you. It was wonderful, and we of course will keep in touch. I'm going to ask you which details you would like to appear below the video, so we'll post everything. And also sometime from now we can also be in touch and maybe arrange another webinar. We'll decide whether it will be like deepening of this one or some other subject, but we will be really happy to learn from your wisdom. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate the opportunity. It's my passion to be able to just share this knowledge with people, to empower you as the individual to take control of your health and your life.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you. And thank you guys for joining. Thank you everyone from the audience. And have a blessed day, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.